Thanks for joining me, and thanks for attending OSACon, and thanks for caring about open source analytics in general. Perhaps piggybacking on the keynote from this morning that Robert gave, I wanted to talk about the open source, last mile, the data visualization layer of the modern data stack. And we're going to do this in 3 parts today. First is how the Apache Superset project does open source and our take on what the Apache way is. And then we're going to get into an introductory tour of Superset moving parts. We'll build some charts and poke around at some dashboards. And then I'm going to give a little hot take on why we think open source BI is the future. So I'll provide various links to resources as QR codes throughout this. So grab screenshots or have your phone handy if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, so most folks at OSACon are familiar with open source process in general, but I wanted to give you a really brief overview of how Superset plays this game in particular. We're part of the Apache Software Foundation. We're one of the biggest Apache projects, top-level projects, any way you count it, by GitHub stars, by commit volume, by Slack membership. It's hard to kind of weigh those individual metrics, but no matter how you slice it, we're doing okay in that realm. In fact, we're about to almost hit #1, if I'm interpreting the blue line there correctly, and hopefully surpass our good friends at Apache eCharts, which is a platform we use and love. Shout out to the eCharts team, but we're going for #1. So it's important to note about the Apache Software Foundation that they own the repo. No individual or organization owns it. They own all the trademarks, and they provide a ton of other benefits, as you can see here, and support our project. In short, they keep us responsible and responsive. They make sure we're on top of security issues and things like that. They make sure we follow the Apache way, which is something they run by. And there's a few facets of that you might want to know about. One is that there's a few different key roles in Apache projects. One is contributors, and that's you. That doesn't necessarily mean contributing code. It could be things like answering questions on Slack, joining design discussions, improving documentation, testing releases, improving translations. There's a lot that anyone can do in this project. And there's committers. Those are people that have write permissions on the repo to merge and review and label things. And these are folks that have been voted in according to standards that the Superset project itself has come up with. That's unique to us. And there's the PMC, the Project Management Committee. And these are folks that are also voted in, and they handle things like security, setting up project policies, and voting and onboarding committers, kind of the official business of the project. And there's a lot of core tenets of the Apache way. I won't go into it all for sake of time because we want to get to the demo. But, one of the main things you want to know about is consensus. There's 2 types of consensus. Everything's consensus driven in Apache. There's lazy consensus, which is where you just send an email saying, hey, I'd like to do this thing, and if nobody objects, in 3 days I get to do it. And then there's voting, which is a lot of stuff we do around improvement proposals, where the PMC members have binding votes. But how do we determine what's important in the need of consensus proposals? We have what we call our Superset operational model, which is a bunch of working groups around software quality, security, documentation, developer experience, release strategy. The main goal here is, since the community is pretty large, we want to provide opportunities for synchronous discussion and working sessions in a way that's still compatible with the Apache way, which is all about inclusivity. So there's a whole flow to this. And the idea being that we generate SIPs, which is short for Superset improvement proposals. And this is our way of kind of road mapping the project. These SIPs can be proposals from anyone. They're not feature requests, they're actually plans. They're detailed out. And once we get consensus on these, we try to rally people around the alignment on design and approach, and seek volunteers to implement and test these features, and all sorts of changes. And we're finding that this process is working, and we're gathering steam. There are thousands of orgs using Superset, and more of these orgs are contributing back to the project all the time. And on that note, since this is an open source conference, and I know a lot of you in the crowd are using Superset, this is a friendly reminder just to say that the best thing you can do to contribute to any open source project is simply tell the world that you use it. So, put your name on projects like ours. Okay, so let's stop talking about Apache for a second and see this thing in action. We'll poke around at some of the moving parts of Superset and show you how this thing works. The first thing you'll want to do, of course, is connect a database. And here I'm using preset for the record, so things look a little bit different, but it's pretty similar to the experience you have using off-the-shelf open source superset. So when you connect to a database, you can fill out all the individual fields, or if you like, you can simply use the SQL Alchemy URL string. We use SQL Alchemy under the hood to connect to basically anything that speaks SQL. And then once you test the connection and everything's all good, you'll be set. There's a bunch of other stuff you can tune here, like different cache timeouts. So if you're pulling historical data from a warehouse, you might set up things differently than if you're doing something that's more like a real-time analytics use case or something like that. Lots of little things to dive into there, but I won't go too deep. Point of the story is once you set up your database connection, you can go into SQL Lab, which is our full-featured SQL IDE, and you can do a lot of stuff here. I'm going to do pretty trivial queries on a data set I actually set up last night, pulled it from Kaggle and stuck it in Mother Dutch just for simplicity's sake. My son and I are playing a lot of Pokemon, so I thought, hey, I bet there's a data set. Sure enough, there is. So I'll just do a basic select star from, whoop, Pokemon DCG. We get handy autocomplete. And then let's see, I want to order by release date. So when you run that query, it just takes a second. It'll fetch the release. And there's a couple other little features here that I can show. One is this query history tab. I don't know why this is taking so long. It's not that big of a data set, but live demos are fun. So you've got your query history, and you can see that these all ran okay except this one, but it gives you a chance to kind of riff on your query and dial it in and go back to prior versions if you need to do that. You can also save queries, and you have a whole history of these things that you can share with others and kind of collaborate on. Or you can go ahead and sometimes you can create a chart directly from a query, but in most cases, you'll probably want to create a data set. So I'll just go ahead and call this Pokemon. And I'll save and explore. And this will take us into what we call the, well, actually, we're going to go to chart view here. Okay, so we've got our table, but what I actually want to do is explore something I was curious about. Everybody talks about this thing in the game called power creep. And what that means is that over the years, the power of the various cards you play in the game gets stronger to kind of phase out the older cards. And I wanted to see if this is true. So I'm setting the x-axis for a chart to be the release date, setting the granularity to year, because that's just more useful. And I'm going to check out the average of the hit points of these cards. I'm going to go ahead and see that chart. So sure enough, the average strength of a Pokemon card is going up over the years. And if we break that down a little bit, we can add a dimension of series, I think it's called. I don't know this data set very well. Yeah, there's that. And this is a little bit screwy looking here, so maybe let's add some markers. Yeah, now you can actually see where things are. In fact, this little scarlet and violet set right here is the one my son and I are collecting now. So that's kind of fun. So I'll go ahead and go into another little nerdy hobby of mine. I'm a beer enthusiast and beer judge. So here in Denver, we have the Great American Beer Festival. It's been happening for a long time. And I got two data sets here that I merged together in SQL Lab. One is a list of the historical winners of this particular beer festival, and another one is a really big list of breweries and all their different metadata, like their website and phone number and address, latitude, longitude, things like that. So when you join these up, you can build a fun dashboard that's got all kinds of insights. You can see the total styles and breweries and obvious things. These are the main prize winners over the years. I was kind of surprised that Pabst is the most prize-winning brewery, but there it is. As the beer festival and in general have exploded over the years, we see a number of styles creeping up, and you can see which styles of beer are the most award-winning, and you can see which states have won the most, broken down by the medals that they've won. You can see that I've got cool silver, bronze, and gold things here because you can actually add custom colors to the series that appear in your dashboard. So you can make things thematic that way. And it does a lot of stuff. Like, for example, if I wanted to dig into California, I can click that and it emits a little cross filter that you see here. And that narrows down all these other things. So you can see that Firestone Walker Brewing is doing really well in California as a medal winner. It filters down this map and how that view works, so you can see where the winning breweries are. If I clear out that filter, you will see the map of where all the award winners are, and the little cleft map to show that California is doing great. Colorado is doing well as well. So both my states I've called home. I've built this little table here to take advantage of the data sets that I've joined, where you can build custom links here. So when a URL to a brewery is available, you get the link. You can also build in little HTML tags to kind of make it a little prettier as to which level of award these different breweries have won. You can search all kinds of fun stuff. And you can also create these, what we call dashboard native filters. So here you can add or edit all sorts of filters. You can do different little dividers. You want to add context to those filters. You can have cascading, independent filters, all kinds of crazy things, but just keeping it simple. If I filter things down to Colorado here, we can just see the charts instantly update. And you can see that actually the festival has kind of kept up where the most breweries has been pretty constant, because the number of breweries is always going up, the number of awards is always going up. Okay, I don't know, there's a lot to dig into here, but perhaps one thing I'll point out is that we do have drilling. A lot of people ask about this. You can go into not just hierarchical drilling like so many BI tools, but this allows you to drill by all sorts of different columns. So if I wanted to explore, pardon me, actually I'll go for imperial stouts since it's stout weather. I can drill by brewery and see who's making the best stouts. North Coast in California is doing really well. I'll bet it's Old Rasputin, but if I drill into beer, oh, sure enough, there it is, and you can drill by metal. So you don't really have to go hierarchically. You can go all over the place and explore your data very quickly, very ad hoc. So I think this gives you a pretty quick overview of how to build a dashboard. There's also a lot of stuff you can do in terms of layout. You can add rows and columns and do some layout stuff like you see here. You can get into customizing things by editing CSS. Here, I just turned that one chart orange, but you can round corners. You can do all sorts of bells and whistles. We've got blog posts about all of that. But the main takeaway here is that you can build charts very quickly, very easily, turn those into dashboards that are highly interactive and allow people to very quickly explore data, whether it's, fairly trivial CSV files like this, or stuff that's at much, much larger and intricate scale. You can add tabs and do all sorts of things. And once you've done that, you can go over here in Superset and build alerts and reports. I didn't pre-roll one of these, but you can write queries that if certain thresholds are triggered, it'll email you or send something to Slack. Or you can just have periodic reports sent so you can kind of see how your data is looking today and those are in your inbox one way or another. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's really handy. Okay, going back to the slides, I want to talk about how Preset fits in. Obviously, I'm doing this on Preset, and I think that's important to talk about. Preset's a fully managed version of Superset. You get the best offering of Superset available without being on the hook for any of the work it takes to manage all this stuff. So there's no headaches of infra, compliance, maintenance, upgrading. Long story short, you don't have to hire a whole team or any number of individuals to manage your Superset deployment. There's a bunch of differentiators from off-the-shelf Superset I didn't really go into here, but one thing you should know is that Preset lets you run many Superset instances. So some use cases might be around, if you want to give cordoned off access to different teams or departments in your org, you could do that with workspaces. You could spin up Superset in different regions for compliance purposes. You could create workspaces for different customers and clients if that's a business need for you. But it's really easy to deploy them, share them, and control access with our role-based access controller, RBAC. And it's important to talk about the relationship of Preset and Superset, and that we're an open core project. And a lot of open source-based products are using Lego bricks of open source stuff. And they tend to fork things and modify them, and that gets a little dangerous, actually. So what's different in the open core model is that we build a crust of additional features that are built around the open source project and things like custom integrations that aren't available in Superset, or UI enhancements. We've got a few cool new features that are coming soon, but this isn't a roadmap doc, so I won't go too far into that. But the key takeaway is it's in our best interest to make sure that Superset is growing and stable and well supported. So that's very helpful. Now, why open source wins? This is the important thing for a conference like this. I really want to make about Superset and hope to talk you into giving it a try, is that unlike proprietary BI solutions, which shall remain nameless, you have every opportunity to sit at the table and raise your hand. And instead of filing feature requests and bug reports that might turn into dead ends, you can get involved with advocating for a feature, helping to direct how and when such a feature appears. And our continuing goal here as this project is to make sure that the barrier to entry here is as low as possible for everyone to participate directly. So Superset connects to just about everything that speaks SQL. That's one of our core strengths. But really, it's the community that contributes to all of this. And this is one of the ways we can kind of take over the world, is with these integrations, whether it's different data warehouses or streaming solutions, whether it's something at petabyte scale or a new way to just parse that CSV that somebody emailed you. It's the community that powers this growth with these drivers and dialects, and we plan to expand this product as quickly as the ecosystem continues to explode. So besides drivers, you can add or enhance different things like custom plugins for visualizations. You can build custom dashboard components, and you can leverage or extend the React component library that the product is built around to build all sorts of new UI features. You can also customize the dashboards. I showed you a really trivial example of CSS there, but there's a lot of stuff you can do. And you can also provide theming, like color theming throughout your dashboards and charts, and get really deep on that. And you can, of course, get into all sorts of different things to make the dashboards feel like your brand. A lot of the stuff around things like white labeling is not quite perfect yet, but the communities are making it better every day, and you can actually kind of join this pursuit and make the Superset be whatever you want it to be, so it fits into your business and use cases. And also, you get to deploy it your way. So this is kind of a neat thing about open source, is that we have a bunch of feature flags and a bunch of configuration settings that you can tweak on. So you can tune things like caching layers, or you can progressively roll out and test new features to your audience and see if they're a fit for your users. So you can deploy Superset however and whenever, wherever you want, whether that's Docker, Helm charts, all sorts of different ways of handling that. And unlike proprietary BI, there's no fear of vendor lock-in. This is a key thing we talk about at Preset, because we've created a preset CLI tool, for example, or you could use Terraform like we saw in the talk yesterday, where you're able to migrate charts and dashboards and other assets between instances of Superset or preset workspaces. So having that fluidity to get on and off of a managed hosted product or your own hosted open source version of it is really key. You won't be locked into a certain vendor forever and ever, like you often are with proprietary things. But then there's the topic of data democratization. That's a mouthful, I guess. There's a lot to go into about how to do this properly around governance and building culture around data exploration in your org. But the key point I want to bring up is affordability and flexibility. And Superset and Preset both allow this. The low total cost of ownership means that you can give analytics, BI, to everybody in your org. And this lets all teams and roles have access to data, lets people answer their own questions faster, and it lowers the maintenance on all of this stuff, which means you're free up your data team and infra folks to scale and govern and train around those data operations. So I hope you give all of this a chance. If you'd like to try it out, there's a few ways to do it. You can download and install the official versions from the Superset website, or you can go to GitHub and you can just pull it. There's instructions on how to run it in various ways, so you can customize it and all of that. Or if the easiest way, honestly, is just to sign up for Preset. You can try it for free. You can have one workspace for 5 people forever. Maybe that fits your needs, but if you grow out of it, then of course we have paid plans that you can grow into. So Superset's becoming more and more capable and more stable every day. This project isn't going anywhere. It's only speeding up. So we hope you join us in this journey.